Being transgender is not something that a person chooses, much like their race. The world is constantly becoming a more equal place. In the 1960s, Africans were granted these rights involving facility use, which were practically unspeakable at the time. Are transgender rights any different? Currently, there are about 0.2 to 0.5% transgender citizens residing in California. Under Assembly Bill 1266, the Legislation Council outlines basic rights for them, with one line in particular causing controversy in public schools. A pupil shall be permitted to use facilities consistent with his or her gender identity. Right now, the law is enforced, but schools and specific groups are avoiding an issue of basic liberties. We investigated this issue and how it is affecting schools statewide. There currently are programs such as LGBTQ supporting and helping transgender students cope with the feelings of confusion that go beyond the typical trials of adolescence. We first talked to AJ, who explains her suggestion of gender-neutral facilities.
I also think that there should be like gender-neutral bathrooms everywhere, but that doesn't happen all the time because I don't identify as like male or female, so I feel really uncomfortable being forced to use like a bathroom that doesn't make sense for me.
Another staff member, Erica, explained to us more on the topic of the laws and how it is benefiting schools along with the transgender population.
This isn't a choice, much like they belong to a certain race. That is also not a choice, or an ethnic background or a socioeconomic group. That is not their choice. And things that are not choices, I think, shouldn't be dictated by society necessarily, politics specifically. Perhaps if there was one restroom on campus, it would be less problematic than this challenge that the then law is now facing. And the easier that society makes it for individuals to express themselves the way that they see fit, the less problematic that everything else will be. This is a small but significant thing.
Teacher Eric Rector explains how these laws are potentially problematic in Saratoga.
I just think that it would create too much of a distraction and a potential for harm.
They wouldn't hurt them. They'd probably look at them weird and be like, you know you're in the wrong bathroom, right?
Students, I don't know if they would act violently, but I think they would act inappropriately, right? Be it, like a Snapchat or some kind of online bullying or some kind of other bullying that's going to be, even more harmful.
The bill also allows students to use sports facilities and play sports based on their gender identity. With this comes the issue of differing athletic ability with one's born sex and not their gender identity.
I think like everything else, it's education. It's teaching the people what transgender is and how they identify.
I think it prevents people from growing. It's not just about gender expression, but normal things like sports or the locker room. And experiences like that are essential to growing up become traumatic, and it shouldn't be that way.
When you get into close quarters like a locker room where you're changing and you're taking your clothes off, it seems weird to want to change in front of somebody of the opposite sex, but that person's identifying as the same gender as you are.
I believe that if we got all this nitpicky stuff out of the way, people could just be free to be who they are and be happy.
For the 0.2 to 0.5% that freely identify as transgender and go to school, this basic right allows them to go through school like the rest of the students and must be honored by law. To reach a consensus with everyone, schools must take gradual steps, starting with addressing these students by their proper pronouns and eventually reaching a comfortable enough stage to welcome the students into whichever facility. The key is education. A school mirrors society, and its job is to prepare its students for the world beyond school, and so the steps and rights through education will lead students to respect each other. We've done this once in the 1960s. Let's take the steps to encourage equality once again. For everyone, regardless of color, gender, and sexuality, deserves basic rights in school and in society.